Hello, welcome to lesson 61. This is using letters to identify geometric figures. Now we're going to be naming geometric figures, mostly polygons, but we will also get into lines and rays and segments. And it makes it easier to identify which ones that we're talking about if we have multiple shapes or figures on our page or in our lesson. So we're going to start out looking at this triangle, and there are many different names that we can actually give this triangle. Reason being that we actually can start at any point to name. So I can name this triangle BCA or triangle. This is a triangle symbol. Now, just as a disclaimer, that does not matter whether it's an equilateral triangle, whether it's an isosceles triangle, whether it's a scalene triangle, right triangle, acute triangle, or obtuse triangle. The shape of the triangle does not matter. This is the general, universal, overall symbol that we use for a triangle. It does not matter what the actual triangle looks like. So this would be triangle BCA, or it could be triangle CAB, or triangle ACB, triangle BAC, triangle CBA, triangle ABC. I can give it multiple names as long as I'm following the lines across, but with triangles, it is impossible to jump across lines and to name it really incorrectly as long as you name all three letters or all 3 points of the triangle. So again, this is the overall universal triangle symbol. You do need to know that for whenever you're naming a triangle. This will be part of the labeling instead of just saying CBA, ABC, because I could be talking about any sort of shape or any sort of line or segment. So whenever we name rectangles, this is still pretty easy. We have to name all 4 points or all 4 of the letters given. However, we cannot jump across. So I can name this rectangle ABCD or rectangle ADCB. I could also start with any angle. I could start with B and go clockwise or counterclockwise. It does not matter. What does matter with rectangles and any other shape or figure that does have more than 3 sides is that I cannot jump across and say rectangle ACBD. That is not a rectangle. I must follow the lines. So it does not matter where I start, but I cannot jump across corners. That is a huge no-no in math. So you must follow the lines and connect it because this is the rectangle that I'm basically naming and following along with the vertices in order. So I can name triangles, I can name rectangles, I can name any kind of shape. I could also name figures such as lines, segments, and rays like we have learned about quite a few lessons ago. Now remember, as a review, a line has no beginning and no end. A segment does have a beginning and an end, just like whenever I tell you to get in a line, it's actually a line segment. There's a beginning, somebody at the front, somebody at the back. You do not continue on and on forever, so you have a segment, has a beginning and an end point, and then you also have rays, which have a starting point and have no end. So this is a line right here, and I can name this line AB, or I could name it line BA. Now we can draw this instead of writing the actual word line, I can also write it as AB or BA. It could be either way. The letters do not matter when I'm naming lines and segments. So I can draw a line over. Now remember, lines have to have arrows, so there are arrows at the end right above the A and the B, or if I were to write it as BA, that would also be acceptable, but I have to have the labeling, which means I'm going to draw a line over it showing that it is a line. I'm not naming the segment. Those are 2 different things. I could, if I wanted to name a segment and say segment AB, I'm looking at just this part of my figure. I say line AB, that means I'm looking at the entire thing, including the part where the arrows are pointing, that it continues and does not begin and does not end. That would be the line part of it. But if I want to look at just the segment in between, just this distance, I could name it segment AB or segment BA. Starting point and ending point does not matter with lines and rays, or no, lines and segments, starting point, ending point does not matter. Or I could write AB and draw a segment above, or just like with this line, I could do BA and draw a segment above it. Either of these are acceptable. That way I do not have to write out segment AB or write out line AB or line BA. I can just write the two letters and label what it is over the two letters. Rays, it does matter. So I told you with lines and segments, it does not matter which letter I start with and which one I end with, which goes first and which goes second. With rays, it does, because with a ray, I have a clear starting point, but I do not have an ending point. So this does have to be ray AB. I cannot say ray BA because that would mean this is my starting point and it does not end over here, but that would be incorrect. That's not how this is labeled. So a ray does matter how you label it or how you name it. So I can write ray AB, or I could write AB and draw a ray over it. So simply put, as I write or simplify the title or the name for these figures, is I just write the two letters, or however many letters there are, I write the letters, and then I just draw what it is over the letters. So over AB, I drew a ray because that's what it is. If I'm looking at this segment right here, the space in between, I write AB or BA and draw a segment over it. If I'm looking at the entire thing, because the whole thing is a line, I do AB and draw a line over the letters. Okay, so then we also have angles that we can name as part of the figure. So this figure that we have, this shape that we have, it's not a complete polygon because it has, at least this part of it has an open part. It has this separate extension to the shape or to the quadrilateral. So if I want to name this angle, I could simply say angle A and I know which angle I'm talking about. If I look at angle B, I know which angle I'm talking about because it's the only angle B. However, D is split into two different parts. I could be talking about this acute angle of angle B, or I could be talking about this obtuse angle of angle B. I would not know. So when I name angles, I have to actually use three letters. I'm basically drawing the angle using my words. I'm drawing the angle. So whether I start with ADC or CDA, I have to include all the letters. The letter that must be in the middle, notice, in both of these cases, is D, because I'm looking at vertex D, but I want to know which part of it. So this says angle ADC, which means ADC. I know this is the obtuse angle. Or I could be looking at angle CDE, and I know this angle is a right angle. So both of these are different, which does make a difference whenever I'm talking about angles. Again, notice what I did here. This is my universal symbol for angle. This means angle. It does not matter whether it's an obtuse angle here or whether it's a right angle or an acute angle. This is my universal symbol for angle, so that's how I would label, how I would write it. All of this is very important to include in your notes. Just like it was with a triangle, it does not matter what kind of triangle I have. This is a universal symbol for a triangle. This is just how I read it. Same thing here. This is my universal symbol for angle. This is how I would write it, as angle ADC, or I could do angle CDA. The order of the letters does not matter at the front and the end. The middle does, because I'm looking at angle D. I just want to know what part of it. So that's how we name all angles. You do need to include three letters. You do need to include the universal angle sign. And whatever angle you're talking about needs to be the middle letter. So example 1 is the only example that we're going to do together right now that I want you to include in your notes. And we'll look at the rest of the example problems together in class as well as the practice problems. So for example 1, this says, name the segments perpendicular to AB. Now as a review, because you probably do not remember currently, is segments means that it perpendicular means that it intersects at a right angle. So it's a line that intersects at a right angle. So what I'm looking at right now is line segment AB. So which two segments, I'm going to have more than one, name the segments, which segments intersect with this segment at a right angle? That would be pretty easy. I know this one does right here. These two lines intersect and form a right angle right here. And these two also intersect with AB and form a right angle. So I'm going to give them names. That would be DA or AD. But I know it's a segment, so I'm going to label it as a segment. I'm going to go ahead and say this is DA. If you put AD, that is okay, as long as you have a segment over the two letters. That's part of the labeling. If I just said DA, I wouldn't know exactly what I'm looking at. I know I'm looking at the segment specifically, so that's what I'm going to label. And then the segment that also is perpendicular to AB and intersects at a right angle is CB. Again, just like with DA, if you put AD or BC and put the segment line or the segment over the two letters, both would be correct. So you can name them multiple ways. Well, actually 2 different ways since you're only dealing with 2 letters, as long as you label correctly. We'll go over the example problems together again in class, and I will be grading you on your notes for participation. Thank you very much for listening.